program entitled The Stories of Our History, Poetry and Prose That Shaped the Course of the United States. It's hard to imagine what our patriots must have felt for this country, so much so that they would fight for what they believed in. When we study our history, we see the changes, the growth, and the strengthening of our country grounded in the beliefs of those patriots, your patriots. We've learned about and listened to many of the beautiful songs that have been written about our beloved America. But do you realize that by also studying the literature of our history, we can not only see the signs of the times and the changes that are occurring, we can literally hear and feel the love, the desire, and the determination for our country to be strong and stay strong. So, once again, just as in last year, let's step back in time and listen to our history for a little while. This time, through some of the most beautiful poetry and prose and songs that you will ever hear. The American Revolution inspired the great writers of the 18th century, no matter where they lived and no matter what their background. Little did the great poet William Blake realize when he wrote America, a Prophecy, that he would actually be prophesying much about the future of our great country. Blake wrote the words just as the war began and continued his writing after the United States became a free and independent nation. Although William Blake never lived in the United States, he must have sensed the patriotism and love for all that our country was founded on. America, a Prophecy, published in 1793, rang true in the hearts of the patriots who read the words then, and it continues to ring true today. Listen to a few lines from America, a Prophecy.
The guardian prince of Albion burns in his nightly tent. Sullen fires across the Atlantic blow to America's shore, piercing the souls of warlike men who rise in silent night. Washington, Franklin, Payne, and Warren, Gates, Hancock, and Greene meet on a coast glowing with blood from Albion's fiery prince and appear to the Americans upon the cloudy night. Solemn heave the Atlantic waves between the gloomy nations, surrounded, heat but not light went through the murky atmosphere. The King of England, looking westward, trembles at the vision.
William Blake's writings did prove to be quite prophetic. We were soon at war with Great Britain, and here in the colonies, there were many great writers putting their thoughts on paper as the war began and as it raged on. One writer, Philip Freneau, was not only a writer and poet, but also a newspaper editor, and very outspoken about our efforts to be free from England. Freneau, a very good friend and colleague of James Madison, and also editor of the National Gazette for a time, was opinionated and very political. His poem, A Political Litany, was composed in 1775 at the peak of American frustration and desire for freedom.
From a kingdom that bullies and hectors and swears, we send up to heaven our wishes and prayers, that we, disunited, may free men be still, and Britain go on to be damned if she will.
Freneau and his friend Madison were greatly opposed to many of the views of our first president, George Washington, as well as to the Federalist policies of Alexander Hamilton. They both expressed the same love of country that Americans have today, however. Philip Freneau, by the way, is also known as the developer of a variety of literary techniques that he used in his poetry that is still used by writers today. Phyllis Wheatley was the very first African-American writer to publish poems of critical acclaim and achieve widespread popularity. Brought to America as a slave in 1761, Wheatley was eventually emancipated by her owners after her pro-revolutionary writings brought her notoriety and success. Her life and works are a testament both to the spirit of revolution and to the insight of a black woman who loves the concept of freedom, the full spectrum of it. And despite her own mistreatment and lack of full citizenship, Wheatley's love of this nation's ideals was intertwined throughout her writings, as in To the Right Honorable William, Earl of Dartmouth. Listen to the writings of Phyllis Wheatley, the irony of her words, as well as her empathetic love of country in its search for freedom.
No more, America, in mournful strain, wrongs, and grievance unredressed complain. No longer shalt thou dread the iron chain which wanton tyranny with lawless hand had made, and with it meant enslave the land.
Probably no words of prose stand out more as symbolic of the American Revolution than the speech that was given by Patrick Henry to the Second Virginia Convention that met at St. John's Church in Richmond, Virginia on March 23, 1775. Although many were still very opposed to the idea of all-out war with Great Britain, Henry was proposing that Virginia raise a militia, and on the 23rd he presented a proposal to organize a volunteer company of cavalry or infantry in every single Virginia county. He addressed the convention's president, Peyton Randolph. The words were not actually transcribed, but no one present could forget the eloquence of this speech. Years later, Henry's biographer, William Wirt, actually reconstructed the speech based on the recollections of many of those in attendance, including Thomas Jefferson. Today, we are very fortunate to have a wonderful orator with us to present a portion of Patrick Henry's famous speech.
Mr. President, no man thinks more highly than I do of the patriotism as well as the abilities of the very worthy gentleman who have just addressed the House. But different men often see the same subject in different lights, and therefore, I hope it will not be thought disrespectful to those gentlemen if, entertaining as I do opinions of a character very opposite to theirs, I shall speak forth my sentiments freely and without reserve. This is no time for ceremony. The question before the House is one of awful moment for this country. For my own part, I consider it as nothing less than a question of freedom or slavery. And in proportion to the magnitude of the subject ought to be freedom of the debate. It is only in this way that we can hope to arrive at truth and fulfill the great responsibility which we hold to God and our country. Should I keep back my opinions at such a time through fear of giving offense, I should consider myself as guilty of treason towards my country and an act of disloyalty toward the majesty of heaven, which I revere above all earthly things. Mr. President, I have but one lamp by which my feet are guided, and that is the lamp of experience. I know of no way of judging the future but by the past. And judging by the past, I wish to know what there has been in the conduct of the British ministry for the last 10 years to justify these hopes which gentlemen have been pleased to solace themselves and the House. Is it that insidious smile with which our petition has been lately received? Trust it not, sir. It will prove a snare to your feet. Suffer not yourselves to be betrayed with a kiss. Ask yourselves how this gracious reception of our petition comports with these warlike preparations which cover our waters and darken our land. Are fleets, armies necessary to a work of love and reconciliation? Have we shown ourselves so unwilling to be reconciled that force must be called in to impact our love? Let us not deceive ourselves, sir. These are the implements of war and subjugation, the last argument to which kings resort. We wish to be free. if we mean to preserve inviolate those inestimable privileges for which we have been so long contending, if we mean not basely to abandon the noble struggle in which we've been so long engaged, and which we have pledged ourselves never to abandon, until the glorious object of our contest shall be obtained, we must fight. I repeat it, sir, we must fight. An appeal to arms and to the God of hosts is all that is left to us. They tell us, sir, that we are weak, unable to cope with so formidable an adversary. But when shall we be stronger? Will it be the next week or the next year? Will it be when we are totally disarmed and when a British guard shall be stationed in every house? There is a just God who presides over the destinies of nations and who will raise up friends to fight our battles for us. The battle, sir, is not to the strong alone. It is to the vigilant, the active, the brave. Besides, sir, we have no election. If we were base enough to desire it, it is now too late to retire from the contest. There is no retreat but in submission and slavery. Our chains are forged. Their clanking may be heard on the plains of Boston. The war is inevitable, and let it come. I repeat, sir, let it come. It is in vain, sir, to extenuate the matter. Gentlemen may cry, peace, peace, but there is no peace. The war is actually begun. The next gale that sweeps from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it that gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear, or peace so sweet, as to be purchased at the price of chains or slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God! I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death.